A slice of life from Thornhold, where sea meets grove. In Thornhold, roofs were built around trees, and trees leaned toward the sea. Every morning the wind carried both salt and leaf smoke, curling through the village's woven wood paths and coral-lace stonework. Ennis Vale woke to its rhythm, just as her grandmother had, though the world now whispered things it hadn't in centuries. Today, the air smelled faintly of mint bark and high tide. That meant a calm day. She stepped barefoot onto the dew-slick threshold and stretched, eyes drawn to the ancient canopy behind her cottage where gulls nested in the boughs and vines hung like lazy serpents. The trees weren't native. They'd grown out of the remnants of a first-age elven temple complex that had long since collapsed into garden, grove, and ruin. The oldest among them clung to coral-pocked arches and shattered starstone columns, now green with moss. And in the shade of one arch stood the statue, a serene, moss-veiled elf, arms folded in the posture of memory. Ennis passed it daily on her way to the greenhouse terrace, and daily she greeted it. "Morning, old friend," she said. "Still keeping quiet?" The statue didn't answer. It hadn't in over 3,000 years. For most of her life, Ennis believed it never would. Magic had been gone for so long that only books whispered its name. But now, with its slow return, tentative, unpredictable, some ruins held more than memory. Some hummed faintly when the moon was right, some grew warm in the sun. None had spoken. Yet. She followed the moss-paved walk up to the terrace, an old elven atrium of fused crystal and lattice-grown columns that had half fallen into a wildflower slope. The greenhouse, such as it was, had been shaped from what remained, a cracked roof of sea-glass panels, driftwood frames held together with vines, and a floor of black sand and stone. She ducked inside, greeting the air like an old friend. The thorn melons were up again. One tendril had dragged a rain scoop across the room and was currently trying to coil around the herb crate. "No," she said, prying it free. "We had this talk yesterday." It shivered, then retreated. She smiled. The next few hours passed in peace. She tended seedlings, adjusted the moisture stones, checked the phalite filters, one of the few magical tools she allowed herself. She preferred real light, real soil, real sweat. By late morning, the clockmender's daughter came trotting up the sand-worn path with a chipped jar and a hopeful look. "Mama says your balm helped the burn," the girl said. "Fireleaf oil again? She swears it wasn't her fault." Ennis traded a fresh jar for a string of pressed kelp wafers and sent her off with a wink. "Tell her I said next time, cold compress first, then balm." "Yes, ma'am." Outside, the breeze shifted. A shoreward pull. Ennis lit a coil of driftroot incense, the traditional warning. Across the village, 2 more trails of smoke rose into the sky. A shared signal. The tide-glass fog was creeping inland. Not dangerous, not usually, but enough to bring things in from the sea, things that shimmered oddly or made bells ring without wind. Ennis climbed to her porch with a pot of mint tea and settled in to wait out the weather. In the distance, the waves lapped against the stone docks, where boats bobbed quietly and barnacle-slick totems clacked with the tide. The statue, visible through the treetops, stood in patient silhouette. It hadn't moved. But the moss on its fingers had begun to grow differently in recent weeks, curling up rather than down. She didn't know what that meant. She didn't need to. Tonight, like every night, she'd sleep with shutters latched and herbs hanging at the sill. The grove and sea would watch over her in their strange, wordless way. And the green between, that space of harmony where old magic and new life met, would hold. That was enough.